Hello, and welcome to Real Cheating Story. In the last few days, my life has been turned upside down, and my emotions are boiling over. I am just not sure what to do next. I am Jeff Holder, and I'm a confused young man at just 22 years old. I come from a very good and happy family. I have one sister, Susan, who is 3 years older than me and happily married with a son of her own. I need to go back a little and tell you about my upbringing. I have always lived in the same house since I was born. I remember my sister would tease me, but that was just sibling rivalry. We now get along great. Next door live the Cooks, Mr. and Mrs. Cook and their daughter, my best friend ever, Charlie. Her full name was Charlene, but she preferred to be called Charlie. She was what my parents would have called a tomboy. We went to the same school, but she was a year behind me. Ever since the first grade, we walked to school together. We were pals and shared everything. I used to get annoyed when people called her my girlfriend because she wasn't. She was my best friend. We talked about all kinds of things, and one day the topic turned to kissing. I remember I was 11 at the time and not really interested in girls yet. We decided to try kissing, and we kept our eyes open and barely touched lips. I asked her what she thought, and I didn't really feel anything. "I don't get why people think it's so great," replied Charlie. "It was like kissing my sister. It was funny because we swam together, played ball, and even wrestled when we were young. As teenagers, we still walked to and from school together like siblings. We studied together most evenings, and at other times we rode our bikes or camped out in the backyard. The only thing we didn't do when we got older was have sleepovers. We did that when we were younger, but we made tents on the floor, and our parents thought we were too old for that now. I belonged to a few organizations at school and even played baseball and soccer. I was just a regular kid and knew I didn't have a future in sports. Charlie joined the band and played the saxophone. She could also play a few other wind instruments. She was great at girls' softball and could really hold her own. So we didn't see each other as much during high school. One of us always had a game or a practice. I asked her if she wanted to go to the junior prom, but her mother said she was too young, so I took another girl. My senior year, I didn't go when Charlie told me that Mike Hagan asked her, and she said yes. I had planned to ask her but never got around to it. She did tell me she had a nice time until Mike tried to kiss her, and she had to set him straight. She didn't tell me what she did, but it made me smile. I graduated and started working at a parts manufacturing plant. One day when I came home, I saw Charlie sitting on her porch with a good-looking girl. I walked over, and she introduced me. "Jeff, this is Candy, my cousin." Before you ask, yes, it's her real name. She recently moved here from Arizona. Her dad, my uncle, is in the military. "Candy, this is my pal, or best bud, Jeff." I told her I was pleased to meet her and asked what she did for a living. I found out she was 21 at the time, while I was 19. She told me she worked in an insurance office as a secretary. I have to say she was attractive, and I couldn't help but notice. I don't think Charlie liked the way I was looking at her. Surely she wasn't jealous. The three of us talked for a while on the porch, and I decided to ask Candy out Saturday night to a movie. I was surprised when she agreed to go as long as Charlie didn't mind. "I don't want to take away her boyfriend," replied Candy. "Why would I mind?" said Charlie. "Jeff and I are just good friends. Isn't that right, Jeff?" she said, staring at me. I could tell by her tone that she was a bit upset, but tried to hide it. "Yeah, we're just good friends. Besides, there is a football game Saturday, and Charlie is in the band." I got Candace's address and phone number and told her I'd see her Saturday. I went home and had dinner with Mom and Dad. I mentioned Candy, and they asked me what Charlie thought. She didn't say much other than that she had to play at the game Saturday. On Saturday, I went and picked up Candy and met her parents. They seemed nice enough, but didn't say much. Candy and I headed to the movies. I was surprised she wore a skirt and blouse. Charlie always wore jeans when we went to the movies. We talked a little about our jobs on the way to the theater. We got some popcorn, and Candy wanted to sit way off to the side, so I just followed her. During the movie, she put her hand on mine and moved it over to her leg. Up until then, I had only kissed a couple of girls, and I never mentioned that to Charlie. It just didn't feel right. I knew that if she let a guy get close to her, I wouldn't want to know. Candy was different. She was 21, had dated before, and mentioned she went to college for 2 years and got her degree in secretarial science. During the movie, I moved my hand a bit, and she seemed to be focused on the film, not reacting much. Thankfully, no one was around us. Eventually, she looked at me and smiled. We enjoyed the rest of the movie, and afterward, we parked and shared some affectionate moments. "Do you have any protection?" she asked. I had never carried anything like that, and I told her I didn't. She said she wouldn't feel comfortable without it, but let me touch her some more, suggesting, maybe next time. I knew I wanted to start dating her, so I asked her out again for the following weekend, promising myself to keep some protection in my car. I couldn't stop thinking about her. I can't say I loved her, but I knew I felt different. A couple of days later, I saw Charlie. "Jeff, we need to talk." "What is it?" I asked. "You have to watch out for Candy. She's pretty wild, and I don't want to see you get hurt," she told me. Charlie mentioned what I had done at the movies and asked if I had ever been with anyone. I told her no, that we were just good friends and not to worry. I also mentioned that I didn't think Charlie had had any relationships yet. "What? You talked about what we did? How could you?" she exclaimed. Now I look like an idiot. "Thanks a lot, Jeff. I care for you. You're my best friend, and I don't want to see you get hurt. I wish I never introduced you to Candy." She then turned around and went home. I thought, women, I just don't get them. My best friend is upset with me, and her cousin probably knows I've never been with anyone before. Great. I guess I'll have to see how it goes. On Saturday, I picked up Candy, and she wore slacks and a blouse. I had to admit she looked nice, but I hoped to hold her hand again. We went out for dinner and talked. I asked her, "How come I've never met you before?" "I've lived my whole life next door to Charlie. My dad is in the service and was stationed all over the place. Charlie and her parents visited us a few times throughout the years, and we visited them twice, but I don't know why I never met you. Charlie probably wanted to keep you to herself. It's not like that between me and Charlie, really. Charlie and I are just good friends." "Why did you tell her about what happened at the movies?" she asked. I explained that Charlie had asked me what we did, and I thought she got upset. "I'm going to make her even madder tonight," she said. "Why would you do that? What are you planning?" "I have the key to my girlfriend's apartment at work. She said we could use her place for a few hours. Do you want to hang out there, or go to a movie?" She was laughing now. We headed to the apartment. It wasn't the nicest place, but all I knew was that I was excited. We started out by kissing. She was a good kisser. We lay there for a while, enjoying each other's company. When we paused, I noticed the protection had come off. "What's the matter, Jeff?" she asked. "The protection came off," I replied. "Oh, I can't get pregnant," said Candy. "Candy, is there any chance you could take birth control pills? I'll use protection for a while, but the pills might be safer. I'll even pay for them." "Okay, I guess I'll make a doctor's appointment and see what she says. Until then, you have to use protection." We dated regularly, and everything felt good, but I didn't feel as compatible with her as I was with Charlie. Don't get me wrong. I liked Candy, but she was just different from Charlie. I still talked to Charlie, but she was really upset when she found out Candy and I were spending time together. "How could you do that to me? Go and hang out with my cousin? I told you she's trouble, but no, you wouldn't listen. I thought we were best friends." "You still are my best friend. It's just that I'm a guy and wanted to explore things. Candy seems nice, and I thought you'd be happy for me. Men are so clueless." "No, I'm not happy for you. In fact, I'm on the verge of hating you for what you did to our friendship. I don't know if I ever want to talk to you again." She got up and stormed home. What the heck did I do wrong? I thought. I just don't understand women. I kept dating Candy, and she kept putting off getting the birth control pills. I was still using protection but hadn't had any incidents lately. Charlie would say hi to me but not much else. I found out she was going to her prom and didn't ask me. I went over and knocked on her door. "Charlie, I thought you wanted me to take you to your senior prom. What happened?" "You and my cousin are what happened. Do you really think I'd go to my prom with you while you're dating my cousin? How clueless can you be?" She shut the door on me. I liked Candy, and everything was fine, but I missed seeing Charlie. My life felt all mixed up, and then it got worse. I got a call from Candy. She said she needed to see me, so I went over to her house that evening. "What's the problem that couldn't wait until Saturday?" I asked. "I went to the doctor to see if I could get birth control pills, and the doctor told me I'm already pregnant, just under 3 months. My periods are always mixed up, so I didn't think much about it. What are we going to do? I was in shock. I had used protection, but it did fall off that one time. What was I supposed to do now? I liked Candy, but I wasn't in love. We were just partners. We sat and talked about our options. Abortion was one, but I didn't like the idea. It would be hard to cover up and also expensive. Candy was worried about her reputation and her job. We came to the conclusion that we would get married. I knew it was the right thing to do. I remembered reading in a story that said, if you want to play, you've got to pay. I cared enough for Candy and believed I could love her. We told her parents that we were getting married. They tried to talk us out of it until they found out she was pregnant. They were really upset, but also relieved that I was doing the right thing by marrying their daughter. I told Mom and Dad that night, and they were really upset with me. I know I let them down, but it was too late now. The hardest person to tell was Charlie. She already knew when I went to talk to her. You're making a huge mistake marrying Candy. You'd be better off just supporting the baby, Jeff. I know it's too late now, but I want you to know I've always cared for you. When the time comes, and it will come, I'll be there for you. I wasn't sure what she was talking about, but she started crying, gave me a hug, and closed the door. Candy wanted to get married right away before she began to show, so we had a small private wedding the following weekend, with just our parents and my sister in attendance. Charlie didn't even show up, which made me feel bad. We found a small apartment that we could afford. It wasn't much, but at least we had a place to live. Our parents and other relatives gave us enough household items to begin our new life together. Life was so different. I would come home at night and wait for Candy. She always got off work later than I did. I would usually start preparing a simple meal for us for dinner, and after that, we would watch TV or visit one of our parents. As Candy got bigger, she became more irritable, but I tried to take it all in stride. I did attend Charlie's graduation, and I was proud of her. Candy got mad at me for going. I had asked her if she wanted to join me, but she said she didn't, so I went myself. I just didn't understand women. I hugged Charlie and told her I was sorry for whatever I did to hurt her, then gave her another hug. She asked me about Candy, and that was about it. I felt like I had lost my best friend when she walked away. I was busy working and putting in all the overtime I could to help pay our expenses. Thank goodness Candy had insurance to cover the delivery of the baby. Or should I say babies? Yes, we were having twins. I couldn't believe it, 2 kids, and I had just turned 20. I was lucky to have a good-paying job, which would put the kids on my insurance at birth. Life was moving quickly now. I spent almost all my time working and saving money. In our apartment, we had 2 bedrooms, and we set one up for the babies. People at work gave us all kinds of things we could use, and Mom threw a baby shower. Everyone was excited about the twins. During the final couple of months, intimacy became nearly non-existent. I was both nervous and tired. This was all too new to me, being a husband and soon-to-be father of twins. One day, Candy went to her parents, and I chose to stay home. I was never the most welcome person at their house. I guess they felt Candy could have done a lot better than me, but I was trying. I was sitting there assembling some baby furniture when there was a knock at the door. I got up and opened it to find Charlie standing there, holding a baby gift. I was so glad to see her. I gave her a warm hug, and it felt so nice. She apologized for missing the baby shower and said she thought she would bring over the gift. I invited her in, and she asked me where Candy was. I told her that Candy went to see her parents and that I was putting together furniture. Charlie smiled at me, and we started assembling the furniture together. I missed our friendship. She mentioned that she was going to college for 2 years for nursing and had already started. I told her she would make a good nurse and that she could take care of me anytime. It almost felt like old times until Candy arrived. "What the hell are you doing here?" Candy exclaimed. "I told you to stay away from my husband. You had your chance and blew it. Now get out of my house and stay away from my husband." I was taken aback. The 2 of them began arguing, and I tried to intervene, but Candy told me to stay out of it. What did she mean that Charlie had her chance? What was going on? It was a good thing Candy was pregnant because I knew Charlie was capable of standing her ground. I finally told them both to calm down. "Candy, I don't know what the hell is going on, but Charlie is and always will be my friend. She stopped by to drop off a gift for our future kids. There isn't anything going on between me and Charlie. There never has been. Look, Charlie said. I'm sorry for all the misunderstandings. I wish you two the best. I'd better go now. She had tears in her eyes as she walked out the door. Candy, what was that all about? Charlie's your cousin, and we've always been best friends. You had no right to treat her that way. I know you're pregnant, and your hormones are all mixed up, but Charlie didn't deserve that. You don't get it, do you? She loves you and always has. You were just too blind to see it. You're my husband now, and I don't want you being alone with her ever. I was lost for words and didn't want to start another argument with Candy, so I let it go for now. I had to wonder if she knew something I didn't. Did Charlie really like me that much? As time went on, we did our best to communicate. Candy had a few good days, but most were filled with her blaming me for her being pregnant. She was scared, and so was I. We weren't ready for parenthood, but here we were. I received a call at work from Candy. She had to go to the hospital because the babies were coming. I left as soon as I could and met her there, calling both her parents and mine. They arrived shortly after I got there. Candy was in a lot of pain and expressed her frustration. You better never touch me again. God, it hurts. I wish it was you going through this so you'd know what it feels like. I understood she was in distress, but it was difficult to hear. I offered to hold her hand, but she wanted no part of it. Finally, she screamed out, and I saw the head of one of the babies. It was a boy. My stomach began to feel queasy. The nurse looked at me and saw the concern on my face. Don't worry. They all look that way until we clean them up, she said, offering me a reassuring smile. A few minutes later, the second baby arrived, looking much like the first, except she was a girl. Candy lay there looking exhausted. Two nurses cleaned up the babies while another helped Candy. I stepped out to tell our parents that they were now grandparents. You have a grandson and a granddaughter. The doctor confirmed they seemed to be in perfect health. I was relieved that the ordeal was over. We all waited in the waiting room until we got the okay to see Candy and the babies. She still wasn't talking to me, barely saying anything to anyone. When they brought the babies in, everyone seemed happy, except for Candy. I knew she had gone through a lot, but I thought she would be more excited. The grandparents were overjoyed, and we named them Larry and Sherry. They were adorable, and even though they were mine, I felt incredibly proud to be a dad. In the days that followed, we brought the babies home, and their room was all ready for them. Candy seemed to be adjusting a bit better toward them now. I tried to help as much as I could. Candy chose not to breastfeed, so the babies were on formula. I promised to assist as much as I could. She had taken a 2-month maternity leave, and when I got home from work, she would remind me that it was my turn to watch the babies since she had cared for them all day. I didn't mind, though. I loved being a dad. I quickly learned how to change diapers and enjoyed every moment I had with my twins. Candy took on the typical duties of a mother, but it seemed like she didn't have the same enthusiasm for the kids as I did. I figured it was just her emotions being overwhelmed. To cope, she joined an exercise club to help regain her strength and confidence. I realized she was worried about her body and how she looked. She went to her exercise class for an hour each evening after I got home from work, and in no time, she looked great. It took about 2 months before we resumed our intimacy, but she did start taking birth control, not wanting any more kids. We needed a plan for when she went back to work. My mom suggested that she could watch the kids while I worked since she adored the twins. Candy would drop them off in the morning before leaving for work, and I would pick them up unless I had to work overtime. It worked out well. Sometimes my mom would even have dinner ready when I arrived, which was nice since Candy hardly ever cooked. I would take a plate of food home for her. One day, while I was at my mom's, Charlie stopped by. It was great to see her, and I gave her a hug. I asked if she wanted to see the twins. Jeff, I see the twins most every day. I stop in after school and sometimes help your mom feed them. They're absolutely adorable. After my mom left the room, Charlie said, "Too bad their mother is, well, you know." Charlie, that's my wife you're talking about. I know, but thank goodness they have a father as nice as you. She gave me a quick hug before heading home. Mom came back into the room but kept quiet about Charlie. We talked about the kids before I took them home. It had been about 9 months since the twins were born, and they were more fun than ever. I would lie on the floor and let them crawl all over me. Candy seemed much better now. As I watched her with the kids, I could see she was juggling her busy schedule of work, exercise, and being a mother. When she was home, mine wasn't any easier. I would pick them up at my mom's, make sure they were fed, and play with them until their mom showed up. It was what being a parent was all about. At least twice a week, we took the twins to see Candace's parents, who loved the kids just as much as we did. A couple of times, Charlie's parents visited Candace's parents, since the two men are brothers. Charlie's dad, Ben, is Candace's uncle, and his wife, Betty, has been like a second mom to me. CS parents are Bob and Alice Cook. They didn't seem to like me as much as Ben and Betty did, but I had gotten their daughter pregnant. Our relationship was okay, but it wasn't what I had imagined it would be. I expected we would be more intimate on a regular basis, but I was lucky if we managed it twice a week. It was good when we did, but I often had to initiate it. We didn't go out very often, maybe once every couple of weeks, and on those occasions, we usually ended up being close. Candy liked to drink, but since I was usually the one driving, I would stick to soda. I was just trying to be a responsible driver and dad. We went out dancing with a couple of her friends from work, but I didn't like the way she interacted with others. I wasn't quite sure how to address it, but I had mentioned to her that she might be flirting a bit too much, and she had toned it down somewhat. Recently, I had started receiving calls from her saying she had to work late, about an hour or so after her shift. After the third time this happened, I began to wonder about it. So, on my way home one day, I drove by her office and noticed the lights were still on inside, with her car parked outside. I decided to go home instead of confronting her. When I asked Candy about the sudden overtime, she explained that they were revamping the computer system and that things were too busy during regular hours. I honestly didn't buy it. Why was it always her working late? I had driven by 3 different times, and it was only her car along with one other, the same one every time. I had to wonder if she was seeing someone else. After all, she was a good-looking woman and likely alone with another man. Candy had always shown a jealous streak toward me, which made me wonder if she might have taken on a relationship with someone else. One day, while I was at my mom's to pick up the kids, Candy told me she had to run to the store. While she was gone, Charlie happened to come over. I had never mentioned it to Candy, but Charlie often came over when I was there. We would just talk about old times and the kids. She was getting ready to start her second year of college for her nursing degree, mentioning that she was studying DNA, and jokingly asked if she could take mine for a project. Charlie, I know what you're doing. The kids are mine. You can take all the DNA samples you want, but I trust you with them, I said. Jeff, I love Larry and Sherry. It's their mother I don't trust, and you shouldn't either. For the record, I do hope they're your kids. I spend more time with them than their mother does. Charlie, why do you have such a distrust of Candy? She's your cousin. Look, she was a wild child when she was younger. I remember how she was when we visited them. I don't think she's changed that much. The reason she went out with you was because she knew I loved you and planned on taking you from me. She succeeded. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. When? Right after you started dating her? No, thank you. You made your bed, and now you have to sleep in it. But it doesn't mean I have to stop caring for you. I have to go home now. I was shocked to hear that, but later when my mom came home, she told me that Charlie always came over after school to visit. She would take breaks from her homework to help my mom with the kids. They were quite a handful. My emotions were all mixed up. I was married now and had a family, and I had to do whatever it took to make it work. I tried to help Candy more, but things didn't seem to improve much. We still had close moments once or twice a week, usually after we went out. I was somewhat at a loss until I heard a knock at the door. I answered it, and it was Charlie. What are you doing here? I asked. If Candy catches you here, she'll go berserk. As much as I hate to say this, I have to ask you to leave. She won't be home for a while. She's working late, right? How do you know that? I asked. I know I shouldn't get involved, but I'm worried about you and the kids. I heard at college on Tuesday that a married woman where Candy works is having an affair with a married man. One of the girls at college is a real gossip. She told me that the woman, who she wouldn't name, stays late on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I drove by on Tuesday, and there was Candace's car in the parking lot next to another car. Today is Thursday, and I drove by, and there it was again. Charlie, Candy has always called me when she works late. She's never more than an hour late. That doesn't mean she's having an affair. Do you have any proof, like pictures, that she's being unfaithful? No, I don't. I just thought I would tell you what I heard and saw. I'm not trying to be mean or break up your marriage. I'm sorry. It was stupid for me to even come here. I feel so foolish. It's just that we always looked out for each other, and I hate seeing you get hurt. Please just forget I was here. I was wrong to come." She left me standing there, wondering what was going on. Candy came home and said she needed a shower. She didn't even take the time to kiss me or say hi to the kids. I didn't tell her that Charlie stopped by. It would have just led to an argument. Candy did mention that she had something important to discuss with me. We planned to talk the next evening. In the third week of August, several people in her office would be taking vacations and going to Atlantic City for 4 days. The company was holding a conference there and would be covering the cost of the rooms for the employees, plus most meals would be provided. She said she was planning on going. What about our family? We can't take 2 little kids to Atlantic City. Besides, I can't get time off work. I took my vacation when the kids were born. You don't have to go, she said. Julie, one of the girls at the office, said she would share a room with me. We're going to drive there to save money. My boss is expecting me to go. He said it would help my future. What if I say no? I want you to stay here with me and the kids. They don't get to see you that much. They've been calling my mother Mommy. No matter what I want, you're always against it. This is my job and I am going. If you can't give me a little space, then fine. This is my future I'm talking about. You can have your precious Charlie watch your kids. What does Charlie have to do with this? I hardly ever see her. I know she visits your mom all the time. Do I look like I have stupid written on my forehead? I know you still care for her. I bet you've been hanging out with her too. I have never done anything wrong with Charlie. You're just using her as an excuse to go to Atlantic City. I heard a rumor that someone in your office is having an affair. That wouldn't be you, would it? If you choose to go to Atlantic City, we may not stay married when you get back. You're not going anywhere. I'll get your precious kids, and you will have a hard time seeing them when I tell the courts about Charlie. As far as me having an affair, I wish I were. We argued about it every day until she had her bags packed and was ready to go. She didn't work any overtime for the following 2 weeks, and I had a feeling she was a bit hesitant about me finding out something. I was lost on what to do. I threatened divorce, and she didn't bat an eye. I talked to an old friend at work, and he suggested I hire a private investigator. He mentioned a good friend of his who handled his divorce and even accepted credit cards. I spoke with Joe Miller, who listened to my story. I told him I didn't have any proof, but had suspicions that my wife was being unfaithful. I told him about Atlantic City and gave him a list of the employees that I knew were going. Charlie found out who was going from her gossip friend at the agency. I gave Joe a credit card, and he charged me $500 to look into my situation. A couple of days later, he called me and said the manager of the agency was taking his wife. 2 other agents were also bringing their wives. He mentioned that Bill Akers, one of the agents, was going solo, even though he was married. The only other 2 people going solo were my wife and her divorced friend, Julie. Joe laughed when he saw Julie's name. He told me he followed her husband and found him cheating on her, which led to their divorce a couple of years back. He mentioned he had dated her a few times after that. He told me he would accept my case, but it would cost me $1,000 a day plus some expenses, totaling around $5,000. I explained to him that I needed proof if she was cheating on me. I didn't have that kind of money. Joe said if I wanted to put $2,500 down on a credit card, he would charge the balance later. He promised me that if Candy cheated on me, he would get me the proof I needed and would keep me updated daily by email. I went home, wondering if I was doing the right thing. I knew I had to get past these suspicions. If she wasn't having an affair, I would do my best to make this marriage work. On the other hand, if she was cheating on me, I would start divorce proceedings. I picked up my kids at mom's and went home. Candy had left work early and came home to pack her bags for her trip. She kissed the kids and told me, "I'll see you in 4 days," as she laughed at me. I really didn't want to be home alone. I took the kids and visited some friends who had kids, and we enjoyed the evening together. I told them Candy had a mandatory convention to attend and would be gone for 4 days. I mentioned that I couldn't get time off work since I had used up my vacation. The next day, I stayed at mom's for dinner. Charlie showed up, and at first, I felt a bit awkward. She knew Candy had gone to Atlantic City. After dinner, we all sat around and watched TV. I felt good just having Charlie nearby. Before we knew it, we were joking and playing with the kids. "Charlie, whatever happened to the DNA test you took of me and the twins?" I asked. She became more solemn, and I felt a wave of concern. Then she said, "You were right. You are their biological father. I'm sorry I doubted you. I really am happy for you. They're wonderful kids." I could see she was genuinely remorseful for having interfered. There was no way I could stay mad at her. Deep down, I always knew we should have been together, but now it felt too late. That evening, I went home, put the kids to bed, and checked my computer. I had received some information from Joe. He told me he saw Candy, Julie, and Bill Akers sharing a table. He walked over to Julie, who recognized him. He mentioned he was there for a few days on vacation, and she introduced him to Candy and Bill as an old friend. They invited him to sit with them, and he pretended to be interested in Julie, asking her to dance. Bill and Candy got up to dance as well. He sent me a couple of snapshots from his phone, but they didn't prove anything other than they were dancing closely. He explained his plan to me. He would date Julie to have an inside track on what was happening when they went to their meeting the next day. He was going to plant a mini camera in their rooms, figuring that if anything was going to happen, it would take place there. On Friday after work, I went home before heading to Mom's to pick up the twins. I wanted to check the computer. Joe had set up a live feed in their bedroom. He warned me that I wouldn't be able to use it in court since it was taken illegally, but I could use whatever he recorded as leverage. He also put an audio bug under one of the beds. He promised to send me both audio and video files if there was anything to share. I figured I wouldn't know more until the next morning. I picked up the kids and went next door to visit Ben and Betty Cook. It had been a while since I had seen them. They played with the kids, who were their grandniece and grandnephew. We talked for a while, but they didn't say much about Candy other than mentioning her trip. Mrs. Cook asked us to stay for dinner, and she made macaroni and cheese for the twins. We stayed rather late. I wasn't in a hurry to get home. This felt more like a home to me. I got up early the next morning and checked the computer before the kids woke up. My worst fears were confirmed. Joe told me that after the meeting, he met up with Julie, Candy, and Bill, and they went out for dinner and drinks. When it was time to go to their rooms, he asked Julie to join him for a nightcap, while Bill and Candy went to their respective rooms. He sent me a video of Candy talking to Bill on the phone. She told him it was safe to come back, that Julie had called, and said she was staying the night with Joe. When Bill got to the room, Candy put her arms around him and began kissing him. I could hear them talking. "God, I missed being with you." We had to make sure we were safe to be together. I watched them interact before I decided to turn off the computer. I had seen enough for now. I had 2 little kids to take care of. I called a lawyer friend and told him I needed to know my rights regarding a divorce. I mentioned I had tapes and pictures of her with her lover, even though they might not be admissible. I wanted custody of my kids. We talked for a long time, and I let him know I would be back the following week to probably file for a divorce. I didn't want to be alone. I needed someone to talk to, and I wanted it to be Charlie. The problem was that I didn't want her to get drawn into the divorce. Candy had already said she would involve Charlie if I tried to divorce her. I decided to call Candy at the hotel. She answered and sounded like she had been drinking. "Candy, you haven't called, so I thought I would check in. How are you doing?" "I'm fine. Meetings all day, and Julie and I had dinner together. I'm getting ready for bed now. It's been pretty boring overall. I have to take a shower. I'll see you in a couple of days. Bye." I knew she was lying. I heard a man's voice in the background. She didn't even ask how me or the kids were doing. I probably wouldn't get pictures of her later. As I sat and played with the kids, there was a knock at the door. I answered it, and it was Charlie. "Hi. I thought you might like some company," she said. She came in, and we talked. She was the one person I could always confide in. She asked me why I looked so gloomy, and I told her that she was right. Candy was cheating on me, and I was going to divorce her when she came home. "How do you know for sure?" Charlie asked. "I was out of place telling you about her possible affair at her workplace. You can't just divorce her over rumors. I'm having a PI follow her in Atlantic City. I know it was wrong, but I had to know for sure." He sent me some files on her and Bill Akers. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I ought to confront her about this," replied Charlie. "I was worried about the kids. I told her that if Candy went to Atlantic City, I might consider divorcing her when she got back. She laughed at me and said she would tell a judge about me and her, but I reminded her that we had never done anything wrong, only talked. She doesn't have anything against us, I added. I almost wish she did, Charlie responded. What do you mean? It means I always cared for you, and sometimes wondered what if we were together. Haven't you ever thought about me like that? Many times, but I was stupid and went after your cousin. The rest is history. The kids were in bed, and we talked about what could have been. As much as I wanted to hold her, I was a married man, and I intended to honor my vows. I couldn't betray Candy. It would make me no better than her. Jeff, if you get divorced, I'll be here to help you through it. I'd never abandon you. You'll always be my best friend. I did give her a hug. It was nearing midnight, and I didn't even want to check the emails. I had seen enough that morning. There was a knock on the door, startling both Charlie and me. Who could it be at this hour? I wondered. I heard the knock again and got up to answer it. 2 highway patrolmen stood there. Are you Jeffrey Holder? Asked the officer. Yes, sir. But why are you here, especially at this time of night? May we come in? We have some very sad news to tell you. Sure, please come in. They noticed Charlie sitting there, and I figured they were wondering who she was. Mr. Holder, please sit down. What's this all about? I've been home all evening, I said as I sat down. Charlie hadn't said a word. Mr. Holder, are you married to Candy Holder? Yes, I am. She's in Atlantic City. What did she do? She was killed in an auto accident, Mr. Holder. It happened a couple of hours ago. I was stunned. I couldn't speak. I sat there in shock. Charlie spoke up. Officer, Candy is my cousin. I'm here to help Jeff with the kids. Can you tell us what exactly happened? We got a call from Atlantic City about an accident. We were asked to notify the next of kin. She had her purse and driver's license, and we were instructed to contact Mr. Holder. We're very sorry for your loss. I recalled talking to her just a few hours ago. She said she was going to take a shower and go to bed. I couldn't believe it. She never drove while drinking. I was always the designated driver. Mr. Holder, she was a passenger. It was her vehicle. Are you familiar with Bill Akers? He was driving her vehicle and was under the influence. I've met him a couple of times. Why was she with him? Did he die also? No. He's in critical condition in the hospital. That's all we can tell you for now. If you need more information, you can contact the Atlantic City Police tomorrow. Again, we're sorry for your loss. After the officers left, I broke down and cried. Thank God Charlie was there. She cried with me. My thoughts were racing. What should I do now? Her parents deserve to know. My parents needed to know too. I wondered if I should wait until morning to call anyone. What was to be gained by interrupting their sleep? Charlie said she would stay with me tonight. I shouldn't be alone. What will people think? My wife was killed, and you're in my apartment, I asked Charlie. I don't care what people think. I'm not leaving you here alone. Besides, tomorrow is Saturday, and I can help by watching the kids while you notify people. Jeff, we'll get through this, I promise. I told Charlie to take the bed, and I'd sleep on the couch. I wouldn't be getting much sleep anyway. It was after 2 a.m. when Charlie wanted to try and get some sleep. I went over to the computer to see if Joe knew what happened. First, I found some files of her and Bill. Then I noticed a call where she was speaking to me while Bill was present. The phone rang, and she was talking to me, while Bill was nearby. After she hung up, she finished her drink and got dressed, and she and Bill left the apartment. After that, I found a long email from Joe, but no audio or video files. Jeff, if you're reading this, you must have been told of Candy's death. I'm getting off the case now. No use wasting your money. I'll be back in town tomorrow if you want to see me. We'll just call it even for the advance. I was able to take the bugs and camera out of Candy's room. I know the police will be searching it. Sorry for your loss. At 7 a.m., I called my parents and told them about Candy's death. I mentioned I didn't know the whole story, but that she was a passenger in her car and that an agent from her workplace was driving. I didn't know any more than that, but I would find out more today. Mom was crying and told me she would be there for me. I told her I would see her later and now had to call Candy's parents. Bob, Candy's father, answered the phone. Jeff, is something wrong with one of the kids? It's only 7, Bob. I got a call early this morning and Candy was killed in an auto accident in Atlantic City. The police stopped here and told me. I heard Bob break down. He told his wife, Alice, and I heard her scream in the background. Are they sure it's Candy? Asked Bob. Yes, they had her purse, and it was her car. She was with a fellow employee who was driving. I think they hit a post, but I don't know. I'll find out later today. I called the Atlantic City Police Department. They asked me to keep them informed, and if I needed anything, to give them a call. I made a pot of coffee and tried to figure out what I would do today. Charlie had gotten up and came into the kitchen and just gave me a hug. We held each other for what seemed like a couple of minutes. She had tears in her eyes. After the kids got up, we fed them, and Charlie got them dressed. I dropped them off at my mom's. Charlie told me she would tell her parents about Candy. Mom said she would keep the kids all day, so I could do what I needed to do. I had to contact the Atlantic City Police Department. I also wanted to talk to Joe Miller. I contacted the police first and explained who I was. They asked a lot of personal questions to verify that I was Jeff Holder. We're sorry for your loss, Mr. Holder. I'm guessing you want some details about your wife's death. She was a passenger in her vehicle, which was driven by Bill Akers. Preliminary tests showed that both had consumed enough alcohol to be over the legal limit. Mr. Akers hit a light pole at a high rate of speed. Your wife wasn't wearing her seatbelt and was found pinned under the dashboard. The impact broke her neck, and the medical examiner said she died very quickly. What about Bill Akers? Is he still alive? I asked. Yes, he is in very critical condition. He is in surgery as we speak. He sustained major damage to his lower body and his chest was crushed against the steering column. He will be going through more surgeries, and he has a 50-50 chance of survival at this point. If he survives, he isn't going to get away without consequences, will he? No, Mr. Holder. He will be charged with vehicular homicide in the death of your wife. He was well beyond the legal limit, sir. What do I do now? I suggest you get a lawyer to handle having the body sent to a mortuary of your choosing. We will also send her personal belongings with her body. I'll fax an accident report to your lawyer for all your insurance purposes. Again, Mr. Holder, I'm very sorry for your loss. After speaking with the police department, I got in touch with the lawyer I had talked to a week before. He was surprised to hear from me so soon. I told him about the death of my wife and asked if he could help me out. He said he would meet me in a couple of hours at his office. He had received the details about the accident and confirmed they would be sending my wife's body to the funeral home I had chosen. He said it would take a couple of days. The lawyer said he would take care of all the legal matters. We had our insurance company to deal with, plus my wife's life insurance from her job, and who knows what else I might need to do later. He would handle any other legal matters that arose. I was thankful to have a caring lawyer. The next person I talked to was Joe Miller. He was very sympathetic about my situation and told me he stopped sending files when he heard about the accident. He said he was with Julie at the time and hadn't realized that Bill and Candy had left the hotel until he didn't see them on the visual. I asked if there was anything else he could add about the accident. Why wasn't Candy wearing a seatbelt? What did the police mean when they said Bill was having surgery on his lower body? Jeff, I talked to a friend at the police station. Are you sure you want to know these things? The press got the same story that you were told. So what wasn't I told? Candy wasn't wearing a seatbelt because she was moving around in the car. She tried to get up quickly and hit the steering wheel. Bill lost control, and she fell forward under the dashboard as they hit a light post. Unfortunately, she suffered severe injuries from the impact. I'm not sure if she choked or broke her neck first, but according to the report, she didn't suffer long. As for Bill Akers, he will be facing significant health challenges. He collapsed a lung, broke several ribs, and damaged his spleen. They might find more damage while operating. If he survives all of that, he will face vehicular homicide charges. I thanked Joe and knew I needed to talk to Charlie. I called her, and she met me for coffee. What is it, Jeff? What did you find out? I don't know how much I should tell everyone, I admitted. I told her the whole story that Joe had shared with me. Don't share all that with anyone, Jeff. Don't ruin the memories that everyone has of her. Just go along with the printed story that says they hit a post, and she was killed. You can say they were coming back from dinner. There's no reason to get even with her. She is the mother of your kids, and you want her parents in the kids' lives. Nothing would be gained by spreading negativity about her. You're much better than that. Charlie was so much more level-headed than I was. I had a copy of the police report, and that's what I told people. Candy's parents helped me pick out the funeral arrangements. I felt they needed a way to mourn, and Charlie suggested it. She also said she would stay in the background during the services. We had a nice service, and it was well attended by my friends and by Candy's friends and fellow employees. I knew that some of them were aware of her actions by the way they talked to each other. I stood there with Candace's parents and greeted everyone. Mom and Dad paid their respects and went home to watch the kids so Charlie could come to the funeral home. I wished I could have hugged her longer and sat beside her, but it might not have seemed appropriate. After the funeral, I had a long talk with Mom and Dad. It would just be too hard for me to care for the kids by myself. We all agreed that I would move back home to my parents' house. I could have my old room back, and the twins could share the spare room. I started back to work after taking time off for the funeral. I didn't work any overtime. I really didn't have a need to. One day, I got a call from my lawyer, and he told me to stop by Candy's employer to pick up her personal things. They also had the life insurance check, as well as money from Candace's savings plan. Most of the employees paid their respects again, but I could see that some, like Julie, did their best to avoid me. I wanted to yell at them and tell them that I knew about Candace's actions and how two-faced they all were, but like Charlie said, it was better to let it go because it was considered an accidental death. I received $100,000, plus a few thousand from her savings. I took the money and put it in the bank for now. I figured I would invest it later for the kids' education. I also got a large payment from the auto insurance company. They paid for accidental death and for Candy's car. My lawyer had talked to Bill Akers' insurance company as well. I actually collected more money from his insurance company since he was driving Candace's car. I paid my lawyer his fees and thanked him for not bringing up the possible divorce. He just smiled and shook my hand. Life was back to something like normal. To say I didn't miss Candy would be a lie. She was my wife and the mother of my kids. I cared for her, but I guess she just wanted more than I had to offer. The kids were growing and starting to speak a few words. It was funny how they began calling the older women in their lives Nana, which included their grandparents and also Charlie's mom. The younger women, like my sister and Charlie, they called Mama. How they knew any difference, I didn't know. I wished I knew what was a normal period of mourning. I wanted to get serious with Charlie, but I wanted to wait for the right time. I was still mixed up and doing the best I could. My parents were wonderful in helping me. They treated Charlie like another daughter, which they had always done. Candace's parents would come and see the kids, or I would take them over to see them every week. They treated me okay, but I doubted I was ever on their favorites list. A few months had gone by, and they asked if they could throw a birthday party for the kids at their house. Everyone showed up, my parents, along with my sister's family, Charlie and her parents. Since they were relatives, Bob asked to talk to me alone, so we went into the other room. Jeff, I guess you know that we didn't want Candy to marry you. Everyone wants the best for their kids. I now know that you are a good person, and I discovered the truth about Candy. I did a little investigating and found out that she had been unfaithful. I know you knew about it but did all you could to keep anyone from knowing. It could have really ruined her image as well as our families. I want to thank you for that. Alice and I both want to see you move on with your life. You have mourned enough for such a young man. We feel you should get back into dating and maybe find a wonderful partner for our grandbabies. Again, we want to thank you for the respect you showed our family. I had tears in my eyes and hugged the big military guy. I knew it was hard for him to say. I didn't ask how he got his information, but I didn't disagree with it either. We had a great party for the kids. Before I left, I told Bob and Alice that they would always be in the kids' lives, no matter what my future brings. One weekend, Charlie came over all dressed up and asked to see Mom. She looked beautiful. Why are you all dressed up? I asked. I am going to a party next weekend and wanted your mother's opinion on my outfit. Before I could say anything else, Mom came into the room. You look gorgeous. You'll have all the boys chasing after you. Doesn't she look beautiful, Jeff? Asked Mom. Yes, she does, I replied, not sure what to say. I was about to ask her out on a real date this weekend, and here she was, all dressed up and looking for the right clothes for a date. I was afraid to ask who she was going with. Thanks, Mom. I better go home and change. Talk to you later, Jeff. She walked out smiling. Mom, has Charlie been dating? I asked. Of course she has. She doesn't go out very often because of school, homework, and looking after you and the kids. But yes, she's been on a few dates. Why do you ask? No reason in particular. I just never knew it. She usually tells me everything. Do you really want her to tell you about her dating? I don't think so. She's a wonderful person, and I want the best for her, just like I want the best for you. Charlie came back over later, and we sat on the porch and talked. You looked beautiful earlier, I said. She kind of laughed and said, what do I usually look like? I knew she was joking. Charlie, how come you never told me you were dating? Well, you were busy with Candy, and before I knew it, you two got married. That pretty much took me out of the picture. Where's the event you're going to? It's not actually a party, but a wedding for one of my classmates. It's in Columbus, so we have a room for the night. I felt a tightness in my stomach at the mention of we. It made me feel sad and unsure of what to say. Good thing he has more money than me because I couldn't afford to stay at the hotel, Charlie added. I was so mixed up. I thought we could finally get together, and now this. Who are you going with, Charlie? I asked. She stared at me before answering, and it felt like minutes, but it was only a couple of seconds. You, Jeff. I want you to go with me to the wedding. Now I was really confused. Are you saying you want me to take you to the wedding? What about this other guy? There isn't another guy. I want a real date with you, not just a buddy's night out. I talked with your mother, and she told me to do it this way. You needed to be shaken up a little. So, are you going to take me? Your mom said she would watch the twins. Mom walked out on the porch. Did you ask him yet, Charlie? Yes, I am waiting for his answer, replied Charlie. Of course I'll take you. All you had to do was ask. This is an important date, Jeff. I'm really putting myself out there. I'll be introducing you to all my friends at school, not just as my buddy. Saturday came, and I picked up Charlie. She looked so beautiful. I wished it was us getting married. I cared for her so much. We checked into the hotel, and she had indeed reserved the room in my name. I couldn't help but laugh when they asked for my credit card. Charlie stood there almost laughing with me. We went to our room, and I realized that Charlie and I would be spending the night together. I knew it, but didn't give it much thought. We freshened up a little and headed to the wedding. After the ceremony, Charlie introduced me as Jeff, her boyfriend. I loved the sound of that. We sat at a table with some of her friends, and it was like seeing another side of Charlie. We danced, and I held her close. I watched her dance with some of her friends. She kept looking at me while she danced. I think she knew I was feeling a bit possessive. Finally, I leaned in and kissed her. It just happened. Sweet and sincere. She laughed at me because I had jokingly asked if it was like kissing my sister when I was 11. At the end of the evening, we went back to our room. Charlie asked me to help her with her dress. After she slipped it off and went into the bathroom, I took off my suit and shirt. When she stepped out in a lovely outfit, I couldn't believe how stunning she looked. Jeff, before we go any further, I need you to tell me you love me. You know I've always loved you, Charlie. It took me a while to realize that the reason you were always my best friend was that, deep down, I loved you. The problem was I found out too late. Please forgive me. I love you with all my heart. We kissed and turned off the lights, with only the glow from the bathroom illuminating the room. Do I need to be careful? I asked. No, I've been taking precautions since you got Candy pregnant. I want to be safe. We both laughed, and it wasn't long before we were together, talking about how much we cared for each other and how I could have been so blind not to see it before. Eventually, she turned onto her side, and I cuddled up next to her. Before I knew it, I was fast asleep. When I woke up the next morning, we were still lying the same way we had fallen asleep. She got up and took a shower. Afterwards, I took one as well. When I came out of the bathroom, she had brewed us both a cup of coffee. But first, she told me how wonderful I was and kissed me. On our way home, I asked her to elope with me so we could get married. She didn't answer, so I asked her again. Charlie, would you like to take off with me and become my wife? She looked over at me and said, No, Jeff, I want to elope with you and get married. I was shocked. I thought you loved me. Wasn't being together last night supposed to show our love for each other? Why won't you marry me? Is it because of the kids? Jeff, I love you more than anyone, and nobody loves those kids more than me. But I never said I wouldn't marry you. I said I wouldn't elope with you. Ever since I was a little girl, I always wanted that big wedding, with me in a white gown. I've told you that 1,000 times while we were growing up. I want the church wedding, my mom in a beautiful dress, and my dad walking me down the aisle. I'm an only child, and I would never take that away from them. If you want to wait until I finish college, I'm in my last semester. We can get married in June at the beginning of summer. By then, we can find a place to live, and I can have the wedding I've always wanted, along with the man I've always wanted. I could feel tears coming down my cheeks. I told Charlie it must be my allergies. Jeff, no one knows you better than me, and you don't have allergies, she replied, and we both laughed. We told my parents and Charlie about the wedding plans, and her mom and dad were so excited. My mom had tears in her eyes. She had always loved Charlie but never wanted to interfere in my life. Charlie said we needed to go see her Uncle Bob and Aunt Alice, Candace's parents. They seemed a bit surprised when they answered the door, seeing me and Charlie together. Uncle Bob, I need to talk to you. Jeff and I are getting married in June, and we would like your support. I know there were rumors flying about Jeff and me being close while he was married to Candy. I stand here before you to tell you it isn't true. We never even kissed while he was married. I can't say I didn't care for him because I did, but at the time, he chose Candy. Jeff and I stayed friends, but I swear we were never intimate. Bob walked over and gave Charlie a hug. Charlie, I believe you, and besides, I know you don't need my permission to marry Jeff. Alice and I wish you both the best. I can't think of another woman that I would want to be the mother of our grandchildren. Time went by, and we went house hunting, eventually finding a nice place with a yard for the kids. We put down a deposit to hold it for us. After Charlie graduated, she spent most of her free time planning our wedding and even found a job at a local doctor's office. I helped her as much as I could, sending out invitations, helping with catering, and of course, spending time with my kids. They were now calling Charlie Carr, and it sounded so cute when they said it. Pretty soon, they would be calling her Mommy. The wedding went even better than planned. Charlie looked like an angel in her white gown. The kids waddled down the aisle as the ring bearer and flower girl. After we said our I-dos, we all headed over to a hall for a large reception. After the reception, we celebrated with a short trip to Branson, Missouri. When we arrived home, we were welcomed with banners and signs that said, "Welcome home." The twins, along with our family and friends, were there to greet us. It's been 4 months since our wedding, and Charlie is now officially Mommy, and she loves it. Everything has been wonderful. Our kids have 6 wonderful grandparents who love them. Mom still watches them while we work, but Betty has been spending a little more time with my mom. We do our best to see Bob and Alice at least once a week, and they always welcome us into their home. Charlie just came home and told me to sit down. She had something important to tell me. My emotions were all mixed up, and I was expecting the worst. Jeff, I stopped taking the pill a couple of days before our wedding. I have some news. I'm pregnant. I broke down and cried, but these were tears of joy. It might be the end of one story, but it was the start of a great life with the woman I have always loved. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share,